Hello everyone, welcome back to PHP course, and in this lecture we are going to look at loops in PHP. So loop is an essential feature in PHP that allows us to execute a block of codes multiple times without writing redundant code. They help us automate repetitive tasks, making our program more efficient and readable. So why use loops? Imagine you need to display numbers from 1 to 100 on a web page. Without loops, you would have to write 100 echo statements. Instead, a loop allows us to accomplish this with just few lines of code. Let's just look at the types of loops that we are going to look at. So we are going to look at the while loop. So this runs as long as the specified condition is true. We are also going to look at the do while loop, similar to while but guarantees at least one execution. We are going to look at the for loop. This is best when the number of iteration is known in advance. Then lastly, we'll look at the foreach loop. This is specifically designed for iterating over arrays and objects. So let's start with the for loop. So the for loop is used when the number of iteration is known beforehand. So in the for loop we have the following. We have the initialization that sets a starting value. We have the condition. This determines if the loop continues. Then we have the increment or decrement that updates the loop variable. So this is an example of the for loop. So we have the initialization set to 1. Then we have the condition. This is going to check if the variable is less equal to 5. Then we have the increment or decrement. So this is going to update the loop variable. So inside the loop is where now we can do the execution. So right now we are going to echo the numbers as long as this condition is met. So as long as the variable I is less equal to 5, we will echo the variable. So this will echo the numbers 1 to 5. So let's run this and see. So we have number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So we can also loop through an array. So this is our array that contains the elements apple, banana, cherry and date. So for us to loop through this, we are going to use count to count the elements of the array. So as long as the count, so we are going to first initialize the variable I to 0. Then we are going to check if the variable I is less than the elements in fruits array. So we are going to get the number of elements in fruit array by using the count array function. So as long as the variable is less than the number of elements in the array, then we will keep on incrementing and executing this echo statement. So the echo statement will be giving us the value of variable I in every loop, and also it will be returning the fruit element in every loop. So by the end of the loop, we should be able to get all the fruits, that is apple, banana, cherry and date. So let's run this script and see. So we'll get apple, banana, cherry and date. So now let's look at the while loop. So while loop is useful when the number of iterations is unknown and we rely on a condition to continue execution. So now let's look at an example of the while loop. So we have initialized the counter right here, and we will be executing these statements as long as we have counter less equal to 10. So right now counter is 1, so it will be looping through as long as this condition is met. So let's save this. So let's run this on the browser. So as you can see, we are getting counter 1 to 10. So if counter was equal to 11, it means this loop will not run even once. So let's save and refresh the browser. So as you can see, we are not getting anything because it has checked the loop condition and it has found that this counter is greater than 10. So meaning there will be no execution. This is quite different with the do while loop. For the do while, it simply means that we'll have at least one execution before it checks the condition. So for the do while, we'll have something like this. So do, then we will be checking this condition after we have executed that. So we'll have our while statement right here. So if we run this, remember that when we'll be checking this condition, this is not going to continue because counter is greater than 11. But with the do while, we'll have run this execution at least once because we are running the execution before checking the condition. So let's save this. So with this, we'll expect 11 as the output because so we'll be having the counter increment after our output. So it means that our output will remain as 11. So let's run this on our browser. So counter is 11. So if this was 0, so let's save and run our browser. So if that was 0, so right now we are getting the counter from 0 to 10. So that's the difference between the do while and while loop. So with the do while, we expect at least one execution even if the condition is not met. So now let's look at the foreach loop. So with foreach loop, is specifically for arrays and objects. It iterates through each element without needing an index. So this is an example of a foreach loop. We have our array fruits right here, and we will be using the foreach loop. So inside the parentheses, we have the array as fruit. So it will be looping in all the elements, and we'll be displaying the elements with our echo statement right here. So it will be looping through all the elements of the arrays. So in this scenario, we don't need an index set because the foreach loop is specifically designed for arrays. So let's save this and run to our browser. So there we go. We have the array elements displayed. We can also loop through an associative array. So this is how we loop through an associative array. We have the person array with the details of the person, that is name, age, and city. Inside the parentheses, we have the array person as key value. So this is going to help us get the key and the value as we loop through each and every element of this particular array. So we can save this and run our browser. So there we go. We are able to get all the keys and the values of this particular array. So that's it for loops. Just some key takeaways is that loops reduce repetitive code and makes programs more efficient. Also use for loop when iterations are known, and while when it's condition based, and also use do while when at least one execution is required, and use foreach for arrays. So by mastering loops, you'll be able to write more dynamic, flexible, and powerful PHP applications. So thank you. See you into our next lecture.